Bill O'Reilly got into a debate with Keith Boykin on the issue of the Black Lives Matter movement, and naturally, he made an ass of himself.
I think it's a good move on the part of the DNC to work with the Black Lives Matter movement, the official movement, not everybody out in the street. And I do think, quite frankly, that they are a natural coalition. The Democratic Party needs to have the support of the African-American community. And the African-American community is concerned about the 923 police shootings this year. They're concerned about the 2.2 million people who are incarcerated in our country, the highest of any country on the planet. They're concerned about the issues of African-Americans not being addressed by the larger political climate. So I think it's important to have that conversation.
All right, so you believe that the Democratic Party is correct in embracing a radical group, a group that calls for police officers to be killed. Do I have your opinion correct?
No, I did not.
Yeah,
no.
well, I mean, the group calls for police officers to be killed.
In my opinion.
How? The group calls, as you just heard.
Who's speaking?
Mr. Boykin.
No.
The group calls for police officers to be killed.
I was there in December in 2014 marching with those protesters. I was covering it at that time for BET, for whom I work. And I did not hear anyone talk about killing dead cops.
Okay, you
were able to find
a clip. We just played it for you.
Yes, you were able to find one clip of some people who were saying some outrageous things, but that is not a reflection of the entire movement. Has anybody in the leadership ever said that?
Mr. Boykin, has
DeRay McKesson ever said that? Has anyone in the leadership ever said that?
You're either going to stop talking or I'm going to cut your mic off. Did anybody in the Black Lives Matter movement repudiate "we want dead cops"? Thank you. Mr. Goodfriend, your time is done, Mr. Boykin.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Goodfriend.
Sir.
You just heard that debate with Mr. Boykin. Would you be comfortable with the Republican Party bringing in the storm front, the Nazi people, and saying, we'd like our candidates to talk to you guys? Would you be comfortable with that,
No.
Mr. Goodfriend? Okay.
No, I wouldn't.
So they're an extreme group, the Nazi Party. The Black Lives Matter is also an extreme group, as you've heard, as we prove it. They just this week interrupted a town hall meeting in Los Angeles, where the mayor couldn't even speak to the folks.
Eat up that false equivalent stew. Neo-Nazis, Stormfront, the KKK, Black Lives Matter. That's an extreme group. That's an extreme group. Extreme groups, what are you going to do? You don't allow any of them. Right, except what's the difference? How many people have the KKK killed? How many people have neo-Nazis killed? And how many people have Black Lives Matter killed? Let's have a conversation about that. The Black Lives Matter, so extreme. They went to an event and they shouted down a mayor. That's really extreme. That's not polite manners where I'm from. How dare you interrupt this person because you have legitimate grievances? That's not very nice. The KKK lynched people. The KKK regularly killed people. We talked about it yesterday, how in the South, it was a regular occurrence that they would lynch black people, and white families would bring the kids and have a picnic and laugh and smile while there's a charred, dead black person hanging right next to them. No, the KKK is a hate group at best, a terrorist organization more realistically, and at worst. And neo-Nazis, then the Nazi Party, they're fucked up. But BLM, I mean, come on, extremist group. Am I right? No, you're wrong. No, you're simply wrong. Why don't you, he always loves to just give his opinion and act like that overrides the facts. Why don't you go and look at what Black Lives Matter is telling you that they're in favor of? He likes to point to, oh my God, I found one rally in this one place with like 32 people. Therefore, when they have violent rhetoric, that's representative of the entire group. No, you know what's representative of the entire group? The shit that they say is representative of the entire group. Namely what? Campaign Zero, where they lay out, hey, we want to demilitarize the cops. Hey, we want to retrain the cops to teach them tactics to de-escalate situations. Hey, we want to have community oversight of police officers. We want to have independent prosecutors when a cop commits a crime so that the prosecutor doesn't look out for his buddy who happens to be the cop. They have a list of 10 different policy things where they say, well, this is the problem and this is systemic racism. It's not even necessarily that they think, oh my God, all white people are just racist and, they have this feeling inside where they want to sick dogs on black people like Alabama sheriffs like Bull Connor. No, what they're saying is the problem is really systemic racism, and let's try to fight this in a policy-specific way. But Bill takes examples of a handful of protests with people who do go too far and say fucked up things, and he pretends like that's representative of the entire movement. No, BLM is saying we want equality. They're saying let's put a stop to systemic racism. The KKK is saying, hey, we want segregation. Hey, we want to dominate. We want domination. Hey, we want the Negro to know their place. BLM is not saying the opposite of that. So it's just, again, it's a full false equivalence. And then cutting the mic was like, hilarious. I mean, you want to talk about a metaphor for black-white relations in America for a really long time there. The white guy with all the power, when the black guy says something, I was like, cut his mic. Cut his mic. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. You don't have any legitimate concerns. Shut up. And then he goes, the classic move, they do this with Muslims all the time. Did you notice what he said there? Has anybody in Black Lives Matter repudiated the handful of people who said dangerous things, violent things? And by the way, there was a pause there because the timing wasn't right. I know I've done interviews and conversations long distance, and there's a slight delay in the feed. You could tell he was listening to the question. He gave him like a split-second response, and he's like, exactly, thank you. He didn't even hear the fucking full question because there's a slight delay. But again, they do this with Muslims too. So what? Think about the implication there. The implication is, if you don't come out and say, I'm against violent rhetoric, then you agree with it. So whenever there's a Muslim that does a terrorist attack, they always go, where are the moderate Muslims condemning it? Now, number one, they do condemn it, but number two, even if they didn't, why is your default assumption that Muslims agree with a Muslim doing a terrorist attack? You flipped the burden of proof. Isn't it supposed to be innocent until proven guilty? Aren't you supposed to assume this is a normal person unless shown otherwise? But what they do is, because it's the other group, because it's black people or because it's Muslims, they go, well, I mean, that's representative of their group. So when somebody does something wrong, if you don't repudiate it, well, obviously, you agree with it. Bill, okay, let's flip this back on Bill O'Reilly. Bill, it was a year ago now or thereabouts that we had a Phineas Movement terrorist. You know what the Phineas Movement is? An overtly Christian terrorist group. They do violence in the name of Christianity. That's not me speaking, that's them. They say that, the Phineas Movement. There was a shooting in Texas where a guy killed people in the Phineas Movement. Bill O'Reilly says he's a Christian. Bill, did you come out and repudiate that? Did you come out and repudiate it? No, I don't care if you do it now or not. Did you come out and repudiate it? You didn't, right? So I guess that means you're for it. Have any Christians come out and repudiated that? I guess that means you guys are for it because nobody came out against it. And we can go down the list. Anders Breivik. Have you come out and said, look, this is, okay, I disagree with that. He's a Christian. I'm a Christian. He was a right-winger. I'm a right-winger. Every time there's a right-wing terrorist attack or attempted terrorist attack from sovereign citizens, for example, where every year they try to do some kind of terrorist attack, has Bill O'Reilly said, okay, I'm a right-winger, they're a right-winger, I'm against them? No, because in his mind, if you're a right-winger, if you're a Christian, of course you mean well, of course that doesn't represent you. But if you're in Black Lives Matter, if you're a Muslim, that does represent you. The worst of the worst within the group represents you, because you're the other, and that's how I view you. No, it's childish. And also, let's keep things in perspective. D. Ray McKesson, who's one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, has he ever in any forum ever called for violence? No. Have any of the leaders of Black Lives Matter ever called for violence? No. In fact, quite the opposite. Anytime there's anything that looks slightly off that they think represents them poorly, like when the Bernie Sanders got interrupted at the protest, nothing but apologies saying, no, let's keep things in perspective here. This is not the way we want to go about fighting for our rights. We've covered this in depth, in detail. And if you actually gave a shit to learn about what the movement's about, you would know that, Bill. But you don't give a shit about what the movement's about. You just want to say they're equivalent to the KKK or neo-Nazis. A highly absurd claim, and the body count alone proves that.